sorry I was late. The Git Rock monster ate my cell phone, and then they ate the butler, and I had to fend for myself today. I'm not interested in excuses. What's with the attitude? You know what you did. Look, our info was going to end up on the dark web anyway, so it makes sense for one of us to sell it for profit. No, that's... Wait, what are you talking about? So we're introducing Phil Stone today. Yes, we are. And in Magic, he's known for his Dungeons & Dragons inspired black and white special edition artwork. But his story on how he got to be involved with Magic the Gathering is more intense than an ancient copper dragon in a token deck. That's an understatement. Well, excuse me, Mr. I don't practice identity theft. Enlighten me on how to state it properly. It's a fascinating interview, and while it ends in triumph, we go into some very heavy topics. This is a very adult interview, and there are some very adult things discussed in it, so viewer discretion is advised. Fair enough. It's also a two-parter, so with that, please enjoy part one of our interview with unsinkable and arguably talented Phil Stone. You just can't stop yourself, can you? Now that's an understatement.
One thing that I found really inspiring.
We can record now, by the way. We don't have to edit any more out. We're good.
Oh, okay. Because one thing I did find very inspiring about your story is that you have and you're open about having a very dark past, and yet you managed to turn that around and land the thing that you were after from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of go through, because you talk about you hint at the horrifying stuff in lots of stories, and there's a couple of books that you've written. One is about your hairdressing days as a heterosexual hairdresser, which is indeed like a unicorn. I think it's very unique. So before we jump into the art, we'll start at the very beginning. Young Phil, you're in a comic book store and you are inspired to do art. So then what are the next steps? Like, when did you start actively pursuing artwork at the youngest age? Like when you were, attempting to start a career, what age was that?
I think I've done 20 some interviews. You are the best so far.
Thank you.
So here's how it went down. I was much too young in 1982 to be introduced to Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
I was at a family birthday party and I was introduced to second edition, the blue box, at a very too young age. But I went through character creation with the older guys, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever. The artwork was fantastic. It really kind of, it inspired me, but not knowing what inspiration was at the time.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So
you just got that overall sense that you got the feeling without knowing what the word.
Right. And the root word of inspire is to be in spirit. And that's kind of what I felt, was to be in spirit with this. And all I knew is I wanted more. So we lived in the woods in a very rural town. And
was this in South Carolina?
What's that?
Was it South Carolina, or where was this?
No, this was Armada, Michigan.
Okay.
So the mall was about an hour away. And my mom would go, this is the 80s, the mall was the epicenter of the community.
Born in 81.
So the mall was an hour away. So every time my mom went to the mall, I was like, you need to take me with you. And she was like, why? And I was like, I want to go to the toy store. I want more books. And I bought she bought them for me, with my allowance or whatever. But anyway, I had accumulated so many Dungeons and Dragons books. And the cool thing about the 80s, and I say this in a cool way, was the Satanic Panic happened in 85 or 86. And all of my books got burned.
Like literally burned. But set ablaze. And
yes. So we had a burn, you would, when you lived in the woods like that, you would get a 50-gallon drum, right? and you would shoot the crap out of this thing with a shotgun. So you get holes in the side of it. And then that was your burn pile. And you would just put everything into this drum and you would just burn it. And why you shot holes in it was to let the oxygen in so it would burn.
That must have been really traumatic to have that happen.
Yeah, especially when all my Ozzy Osbourne, my Motley Crue, all my favorite albums got put in there too. Oh. And so the funny thing was, and I still at 47 years old do not understand my dad's logic on this one. After all of that got burned, because I had, God-fearing parents, and they went to church, and the pastor happened to bring up Dungeons and Dragons. And that's why my mom's like, that's what it's all about. That's what I've been buying you and this and that. And that's why I got burned. So long story short, my dad, and I don't understand his logic, came up to me one day and he was like, hey, here's some magazines. Might get your mind off of, burning your books. And they weren't the magazines under his bed. They were Warren Publishing. They did Vampirella, Creepy, Eerie. So here's a whole bunch of horror magazines from the 60s and 70s with gore and death and destruction. And why don't you get into this? So that's when I discovered Bernie Wrightson. And Bernie Wrightson still to this day haunts me. And the first story I saw from him when in 86, I want to say it was 85 or 86, was he illustrated Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. Ooh. Now, I still have that issue my dad gave me. And that's when I was like, not only do I want to draw little pictures, but I want to do it this way. I want to do, because there's a thing about black and white art where your mind kind of fills in the blanks. Mm-hmm. You don't have this hyper realistic, video game color scheme or anything like that. You're looking at an illustration and your mind is interacting with that art.
Yeah, probably even if you're not aware of it, I'm sure, and on a subconscious level, if you see a dragon, you might determine it's green in your head without even realizing that you're doing it.
Right. So that was when I decided that's what I want to do. And I want to draw little pictures for the rest of my life. And I want to create stuff. And I want to draw monsters. And I want to draw people doing stuff in certain situations and this and that. And then, the whole of course I want to be a comic book guy. That's what I was shown. I was like sequential art on how to do storytelling, through images, like 4 to 6 panels a page.
And that makes, hearing that story too, that has to be probably a lot of the reasons why. I mean, I'd imagine you're very driven to sort of rebel against what happened because you focus a lot on stuff that would terrify the satanic panic times people. Like the stuff that you do is almost like it's irreverent in its sort of celebration of the dark.
Well, look at the satanic panic was the greatest thing that ever happened to the 80s, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, it made everything else cooler. Like you had what's his name from Twisted Sister,
D. Snyder up in front of Congress
in front of Tipper Gore and testifying in front of the congressional hearings about it. And what happened with all that? At the end of the day, all these CDs and albums got a sticker. It said parental warning. Well, 1986, I'm like, parental warning? I want to listen to that.
Was it that early that happened? I thought that was Tipper Gore.
No, yeah, it was Tipper Gore. Tipper Gore was part of it before Al Gore became vice president.
She had a wild hair up her ass, didn't she? I mean, she was
kind of sexy in that 80s way, though. You were like, yeah, so? I want you to reprimand me.
I remember her looking boxy.
Oh, she was absolutely boxy. Everybody was boxy in the 80s. Everybody had the goddamn shoulder pads.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I was in kindergarten, but I had them. I mean, like it's, dressing like the Golden Girls. Yeah, the Golden Girls were great.
So what do you think happened to Dungeons and Dragons? Dungeons and Dragons went through the roof with sales through the Satanic Panic.
That's true.
And then not only that, but we got Tom Hanks out of it. If it wasn't for the Satanic Panic, we wouldn't have Tom Hanks. And the reason being is because some kid in Michigan State University decided to go in the tunnels and play Dungeons and Dragons by himself, and then ended up dying, which is how we got Mazes and Monsters, which was Tom Hanks' first role when he went into the subway in New York to fight a mysterious dragon, because he was so involved with this game. Yeah, so if you look up Mazes and Monsters, I got introduced to that when it first came out. I mean, that was like, what, 86, 87 when that came out.
Now, how old were you in like 86, 87?
I was in 86, I was in 6th grade. I was in middle school.
Okay. So, yeah.
And then 86, I got thrown out of the public school in the little village we lived in out in the woods, and I got put into in 87, 88. I got put into, and I never knew it existed. I only saw it on Little House on the Prairie. It was a one-room school in the basement of a Baptist church, and it was K through 12 in the basement. And there was like maybe 30, 35 of us, K through 12, right? And we had to sit in, dude, you're digging up some shit right now. We had to sit in cubicles. And so you had these, you couldn't see anybody, but they kind of sloped down like towards the wall. So like there was the one hot chick that was like kind of my age, and you could like peek through the whole line of cubicles and like kind of make like googly eyes at her, but you weren't allowed to like ask questions either. You had to put up little flags. And there was only 2 teachers for K through 12 in this whole school, and they sat in the middle of the room. And depending on the flag color that you put up, that was the teacher you needed to come over to your cubicle and ask a question. So I lasted there probably, I think, a year and a half. I was the first one in 15 to 20 years to get corporal punishment.
Man.
And yeah, they had a whole
paddle, or
huh?
It was like a paddle or something?
Oh yeah, they beat the shit out of me.
Oh man.
And prayers and scripture and everything, and I got thrown out of there. But the cool thing was the zip code we had was shared with another town next to us. So my parents were like, well, there's no more schools in this area for Phil, so we have to move.
That's oddly, I mean, that's nice. It's supportive, right? Like there's support there. As a question about your dad, have you since now that you're, like you've proven that the quote unquote bad stuff that you were into has actually been a boon for your existence. It's been, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy for success. Have you and your father like come to terms with that? Has there been any like maybe like a peace sort of made between you two, or is he still very like stuck in the religious point of view?
No, we started talking again. It's been an on and off relationship since I graduated high school. Mm-hmm. There were several year periods where he was like, I want nothing to do with you. And then we started talking, it's one of those things. Right now, we started talking again, and because he was like, you finally made it, everything. And I was like, well, wait a second, you can't just kind of pop up.
Yeah.
When shit goes good, when I finally get, but the whole time, my dad was a cop.
Oh wow. Oh, that's intense.
Yeah. So my dad was a cop, and my mom was a hairdresser, and then they wonder why I'm fucking bipolar.
That's an interesting like dynamic going on there. But
tell me about it.
Your mom, she was, I feel like she. Well, I'm jumping ahead. So okay. So you where do you end up graduating, and how soon after graduation do you take the big leap to go to California to try to pursue the artwork? Because that's when things start to like. That's when stuff gets cray, right? Or crazier.
Well, it was crazy in the beginning too.
Yeah.
And it all started, I was working at a makeshift comic book store. I ended up graduating from Romeo, Michigan, which is neighbors to Armada. And when I was working at that comic book store, I think it was 10th grade. Anyway, somebody told me that there was, I always wanted to do comics. I had no direction whatsoever, and no art classes were given to us.
Not in the underground school where they.
No
art classes.
Draw pictures. That was blasphemy,
right? Yeah,
like false idols on paper.
Yeah, you can't even draw Jesus.
No. So anyway, so there were no art classes in Romeo. The one closest one that I took was called a commercial art class, which I guess would be considered a graphic arts class now. And we learned how to make business cards, which was dumb. And anyway, I heard there was a Marvel artist 2 towns over in the woods.
Who was that?
I can't say the name.
Why?
Because I'm going to tell you the story, and the guy, every time I tell the story, gets hate mail.
He does?
Yeah.
But
him and I are really good friends, and we still talk today. He's best known.
And people are really that thick that they hear you say we're friends. It was it's an anecdote. It's not. I mean, that sucks. I'm sorry that people can't.
Yeah.
But tell the story.
So the guy.
I will like to know the name afterwards, though.
All right, deal. The guy is best known for Savage Sword of Conan and Punisher War Journal.
Okay.
And I found him in the phone book one night and looked him up, cold called him. 10th grade. I just got my driver's license, right? I'm 16. And I cold called this guy in the middle of the night, and I'm like, hey, I'm Phil Stone. I was wondering if you could look at my portfolio. Now, I didn't have a portfolio. I had a beautiful faux leather portfolio my parents bought me to put my little scraps of paper in, right? I didn't know how to make a portfolio. So I said, hey, I want to draw comic books. Can you take a look at it? He said, yeah. I said, well, he goes, well, when are you available? And I was like, okay, whenever. He goes, why don't you come over tonight?
What? Wow.
Right. So my dad, being a cop, when I tell him I'm going to this stranger's house 2 towns over in the woods at night, my dad was like, well, hot damn, we could be empty nesters by morning. Why don't you take your sister? So
are you serious? Oh my God.
So anyway, long story short, she was 3 years younger. I didn't take her. Oh. So I jump in the car and I go to this house at night, and it's this beautiful Victorian home in the middle of the woods. And I was like, and I have a thing for Victorian homes. And long story short, he answers the door. It's the dead of night. He takes me up in his studio. It's in the attic. Dude, Conan's on the wall. Punisher, all these reference pieces. This is my mecca, right? This is what I want in life. And he goes, let me see your portfolio. So I said, okay. So I give him my portfolio. And he starts flipping through it like it was yesterday's newspaper. And within 3 minutes, he's through all my scraps of paper. And he hands this thing back to me. And he goes, I don't know what the fuck I just looked at. He goes, this is absolute trash. He goes, this is probably the most garbage I've ever looked at in my life. He goes, do you want to do anything else with your life besides a comic book artist? And I said, no. He goes, do you own an anatomy book? And I said, yeah. And he goes, did you fucking open it? He goes, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, I don't even know where to start with you. He goes, this is trash, and you have wasted my time.
Oh.
And so I'm sitting there going, my dreams are crushed, because I thought in my head, I was like, oh, he's gonna be like, oh, you need to work for Marvel tomorrow, that kind of thing. He's got those weird delusions of grandeur.
Well,
anyway,
you did end up at someone's house, and okay. My dog Maggie is 17 years old, and
love her.
she just realized that we're doing the interview. So if I don't calm her down, I will be right back.
Dude, you're fine, man.
She's right now aware that we're talking. So Maggie, here. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine, man.
That's Miss Maggie. 17 years old.
Hell yeah.
She's an old lady. Okay, don't do it again. All right, as we're saying, but at the same time, I could see why you would be like, oh, this is the big time. I mean, I'm going over to this famous comic, artist's house, and I'm in their studio, and I mean, first of all, that would never happen today. Like,
oh no, it gets worse. So at the very end, he goes, you've basically wasted my time. He goes, all I'm going to tell you, he goes, where do you live? And I said, Romeo. He goes, all right, there's a lot of trees from here to Romeo. I said, yeah. He goes, if you don't wrap your car around a tree in a suicidal rage on the way home, you might make it. So
why?
As I'm driving home, every tree was a target. And I'm completely crushed. My dad was crushed that I actually made it home from the stranger's house.
Oh.
And he was like, how'd it go? I was like, whatever. And I went up to my room, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm never fucking drawing another picture again. This was horrible. I should slit my wrists. It was just devastating. And
that's really bad, though. I mean, he didn't need to do that.
A couple days later, punk rock Phil kicks in, and I'm like, F that guy. I'm going to keep drawing. Yeah.
You can say fuck if you'd like.
That guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to draw little pictures. And I don't care what. Screw Conan. I hate the Punisher. All these guys just went off on this, but that's the punk rocker in me. That's the rebel, you tell me I can't do it. Go piss off. And so I kept drawing and drawing and drawing. And in my head, with these delusions of grandeur, I was thinking by the time I turned 18 and graduated, Marvel was going to come knocking on my door and offer me to draw Spider-Man for some weird reason. And I never applied to them, but I thought they were going to show up, and they didn't. And my dad gave me an ultimatum and said, you can either go to college and live there, or you can get a second job and get an apartment and go live there, but you can't stay here. And I had to move out 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I had no choice.
So where did you go then? Did you go to California, or did you No?
California didn't come until after South Carolina, and after Florida.
You live in Florida?
For 2 weeks on the beach as a homeless person.
Wow.
I was brought down there by a company called Young Surfboards out of Detroit in the 90s. And he brought us down there, me and my first ex-wife. And again, delusion is grandeur. Anybody who liked my work, I was like, this is it. Big time. And he goes, come on down to Cocoa Beach.
Who's he?
Sean Young. I'm pretty sure he's dead now.
And he hired like you guys to do like, what was
he hired me to do t-shirt designs for a surf company out of Detroit. In Detroit, there used to be a surf community that would catch the wakes off the barges on the lakes. And it was a whole longboard community, and it didn't last long in the 90s. It was like this weird overnight thing. Anyway, he wanted to pitch this whole T-shirt idea down to Ron John's in Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, that's around where I grew up.
And yeah, we went down there. I was penniless. My first ex-wife was a hustler, and who actually taught me how to hustle. And yeah, we went down there, and there was nothing. Like, this dude was such a bullshitter. And I had no money. My first ex-wife was trying to get some money off the street and couldn't do. We ended up sleeping on the beach for 2 weeks when the car got too hot. And I was like, this ain't panning out. We got to go back to Detroit.
And wow, so this is a lot of adversity to.
Oh, it gets worse.
You know what? That's okay, because at least like it's fine. I'm fine hearing that, because I know that the person that I'm talking to has the success at the end. So, because otherwise I'd be crying by now. I'd be like, this is sad. It's sad, but it's also it is. It's very sad, because like that's some raw hands. You were dealt some raw hands. I mean, like.
No, okay. So I wasn't really dealt a bad hand. And that's what I try to explain to a lot of people. What I was dealt with was a lack of information.
Yeah, yeah.
So I used to shop my portfolio around throughout high school at Detroit Comic Cons. And there's a certain point where, yeah, you can be punk rock and say F you don't like my stuff. But there's also a point where you're like, I'm not going to take your advice. Yeah. So that's on me. That's on me.
Right.
And this is why it took me 28 years to get where I'm at right now, is because I wanted to do things on my terms. And I was going to figure it out on my terms. Mm-hmm. And when people were like, wow, you suck, your anatomy's horrible, you're I don't even know what these backgrounds are and stuff like that, you can only beat your head against the wall for so long before you have to be like, okay, I got to figure this out. But that's doing things on your own terms.
Yeah. And I understand. I identify with that. I share the same sort of life experience, but it is hard to take the information in when another person's selling it to you, because there is I do feel a certain amount, a lot of sympathy for, just because that's a lot of like having to have, doors slammed in your faces over and over and over again. Whereas, the age of the internet, you can just type that thing in. And it's
right there.
Yeah. It's completely different. And it speaks to your tenacity and your huevos, because you just walked into these situations where, it's like you also didn't, without the information there, you also didn't know that you should be, you didn't have any, you had no fucks to give either. So
no. So the other part of it was, that was the exterior part of me was the punk rock Phil. There's a reason I didn't go to college anymore the first time around. 3 suicide attempts at a university will get you kicked out.
Really?
The first 2 were bullshit, cries for help, because I wasn't allowed to go to art school. So I had to go to a university and pick a thing. I was a medieval history major.
That could actually be the one less useful degree than art. You know what I mean?
It was horrible. I was just like, I love history. I'm a history nut, right? But I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
But wait a second. I have a dorm. I have a guy who can buy me liquor. I'm dating a girl who's got handfuls of pills all the time. Why should I go to class when I can just party for 2 years straight spring, summer, fall, and winter. And eventually, I ended up, I think I had a 0.7 GPA when I got thrown out. And that was after the third suicide attempt, which was actually supposed to be the real deal. And the only reason I did not die that night is because I was so messed up. There were 3 panes of glass. I was staying on the 8th story dorm room. And I went head first trying to do my last stage dive out this window. There's 3 panes of glass. I got through the first 2. Could not make it through the third because I was so messed up. And after that, I blacked out.
Oh my God.
The next thing I know, I woke up in a 4-point restraint in a Detroit psychiatric hospital.
Oh man.
Where I stayed for 2 months.
I mean,
but the weird thing was they took my shoelaces. They took my
they'll take anything.
All that stuff they took away from me, right? But they let me have my pens because they thought the art was like therapeutic for me.
I mean, they're not wrong, but they're also forgetting what pens can do.
Right, especially your opiniographs. I mean, those things are like tattoo pens. Anyway,
yeah,
they let me keep those. So I just drew the whole time for all those days before finally the psychologist was like, "You're not crazy. You just got a drug and alcohol problem."
Is that the official diagnosis, doctor? It's like,
yeah, exactly. He was like, "Well, we've been feeding you these pills for all these weeks, and
so it sounds like there was a little bit of therapy though, because you got to, once again, drawing. Regardless, it seems it brings you brings you that steady, the thing that you go to for comfort. That
well, there was always 2 things in my life that have never left me since I was 10 years old. And that was my drawing tools and my skateboard.
You still skateboard, I read, right?
38 years.
That's nuts. I mean, good.
Yeah, I started when I was 10. I'm almost 48 right now. I still skatevert.
Does it scare you to do it? Because it's like, because I'm 40 and it's like, there's certain things where I'm like, I could do that, but that also could be the last time that I do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's the fun part. If it's gonna be your last, it might as well be your best.
My goodness, man. Okay, so then where so after college, okay, so where do you make it? When do you make it to California? Because because unfortunately there wasn't like a lot of story for me to do research off of, so I have a lot of holes in my questions, which I hate having to.
All right, so in order to get to California, you got to go to South Carolina.
Yes, okay. So there was a lot of stuff that went down in South Carolina because I read a lot about South Carolina.
So I was with I actually married my first ex-wife. And one day she goes, "Pack it up, we're leaving." And we were in Pontiac at the time, outside of Detroit. And I said, "Where are we going?" And she goes, "Well, we're going to pack up what we can in the car. We're going to start driving south." I'm like, "Why?" She goes, "We're going to find a place to live." And I said, "All right, cool." Ended up on an island off the coast of South Carolina called Folly Beach.
Yep.
Now, I have an absolute soft spot for Folly Beach.
It's pretty. It's really pretty.
We got there. There was nothing. When we got there in the 90s, it was nothing. And all we had was whatever dowry she had, because she was a farm girl. And her parents gave her a dowry of cash.
Wow, I didn't think that still happened.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I got married on a farm my first time in a barn. Oh yeah.
That's kind of like you see now there's these like hipsters like paying like tons of money to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So long story short, we're on this island and we're at a diner looking for jobs. There's no jobs on this island. There's nobody living on the. There's 2 bars. They're both gay bars because Folly Beach had the highest population per capita of gay men.
I'm aware. I've been told by sources that I would deem would know it. And by that, I mean other gay guys.
So it was. I worked at a gay bar called Planet Follywood, which is still around.
How do they not get sued?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. All I know is, and before I worked there, we had to get a place to stay, and there wasn't that many places to stay on that island, so we found these 4 apartment the 4 apartment units that were up on stilts, right? And they weren't done yet, so we went and talked to the owner, and I told the guy I was a carpenter, the owner, and I said, look, I know one of the units is finished. If you let us have that unit, I will work at a discount as a carpenter to help finish the other 3 units. I didn't even have a hammer.
Wow.
So I showed up for the first day of work with the one guy who was building it. And for the first 30 minutes, he looked at me. He goes, "You're not a carpenter." And I said, "No, but here's a funny story." I needed to get that unit that was done. So I bullshitted my way. I'm going to tell you the truth. He goes, "That's really funny, but you can't help me because you suck." So he goes, "Can you cut lawns?" And I said, "Yeah, I can cut lawns." He goes, "Okay, I'm going to tell the guy I don't need you, but you're going to be a landscaper on the island." And I was like, "Okay, well, it's a difference between mowing the grass up here and mowing the grass on an island."
Yeah.
And I ended up getting fired. Long story short, the weed whacker that I was given had a bike chain on it instead of a weed whip because the island grass is so thick.
Yeah.
And I was doing the owner's home, which was on stilts. Well, all your water has to run up those stilts in PVC pipes. And I was so doped up on pills at the time, I wasn't paying attention, and I cut his water line in half with this bike chain on a weed. His wife was in the shower. The water is up like a geyser. And I'm just standing there, doped up out of my head, watching 30 feet of water come out of the ground. And the guy comes running out. He's yelling at me. He's trying to fix it and patch it up. He patched it up. He goes, "You're worthless. Get the hell out of here." So and then they opened up Planet Follywood, and I ended up flipping hot dogs at the gay bar.
They sold hot dogs at the gay bar.
Dude, I made the best honey mustard from scratch, and they thought it was fantastic. Everybody was great.
Well, was the community? Did you find any solace there, or was it just predatory? It seems like
I had a blast. I made so many friends at that bar. I was there 7 days a week. Whether I was working or not, I was at that bar 7 days a week, not just drinking, but I had the greatest time.
They're a lot of fun, at least like back when they existed. I don't know now that, like with apps and stuff, bars they're not a thing.
Well, this was 90, 96, 97.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the place.
That's when you got to meet people. You
met people.
Humans.
I had a blast. I met so many people. I had a great time. I was there 7 days a week, mostly working. But I did not know my first ex-wife was running a brothel out of our apartment.
A brothel? Was she a madam, or?
She did everything. She was a one-man show. So I came home early one night when she thought I was working, and I thought she worked. There was another bar on the other side of the island called the FBI, and it was the Folly Beach Inn, which is still there today, I believe. And I thought she worked there. So we never really saw each other because I was either having fun at the bar as a social thing, or I was working there. And I came home one night, and she was performing on a young male. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went upstairs and I came back downstairs. Dude was gone after I took a shower and she was counting money. And that's when she goes, yeah, I've been doing this. I don't work at that bar. And she goes, I don't want to be married anymore. So you can leave in the morning. So I ended up leaving in the morning. There's some shit that happened that night at the pier. Anyway, I made it back to Detroit and I lived in a buddy's basement. And then he ended up buying a house. I was and this whole time I'm still submitting to different comic book companies.
That's impressive. That really is.
Throughout all this crap, I'm still submitting. And one guy got a hold of me. And his name was Craig Storman from Blue Comet Press in Carlsbad, California. And we had this relationship. He started teaching me how to draw over the phone. He was like, you suck, but I'm going to get you better. And wow, long story short, I keep sending him stuff because he's the only one that will talk to me. And we used to have, I used to have rejection letters like taller than my drawing desk. Always had a drawing desk. And the best one was from Dark Horse Comics.
What? Oh no.
So the owner of Dark Horse Comics hated my work so bad. He takes a piece of letterhead from Dark Horse, puts it in a typewriter. Now, me and my buddy figured I was a typewriter because all the letters were indented. We hyper analyzed this one because it's my favorite rejection letter ever. So he takes this letterhead, puts it in a typewriter, and he types out trash, 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 signs it with a ballpoint pen, puts it in an envelope, puts the envelope into the typewriter to type out my address, puts a stamp on it to mail it out to me. That's how much he hated me.
You know, here's the thing. And I've noticed this, like whenever you see an artist come out where you have people either loving or hating, and when somebody hates, that's still a guttural response. Like that's still you want that reaction. I mean, not necessarily maybe for applying for jobs, but you got to wonder, like, what was it that set them off? Because I just don't understand how anybody could be that vindictive to just like, I mean, you would think that they would be used to seeing people who either had the ability to do it or were not there, but to like get angry with somebody who is, you know.
Oh, this man hated me. So we used to have in the house I lived in, God, that's a whole other story too. I mean, we there was a strip club behind us over on Joy Boulevard, and we had no money. So we would all go to the strip club and chip in to get a pitcher of Michelob Light and wait for the free pizza to come around. And that was our dinner for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So we would get completely tanked. And then we'd go back to the house and we'd have these like rejection letter readings. And my buddy was like a huge death metal nut. And he'd be like, hey, Phil, I just got your artwork. You know what to think about it? And he'd go, trash, trash, trash. And we'd have the best laugh about it. Oh my God, it was the greatest. Anyway, finally one night, Craig called me up from Blue Comet. He goes, you're good. We like the books because my death metal buddy was writing some books and I was illustrating them. I was sending them off and stuff like that to Craig. Anyway, so long story short, he goes, I like these 2 books you guys been doing. When can you come out to California? And I said, give me 4 days. Took every dollar I had. They wouldn't, budget rental would not give us a van. I didn't have anything. I barely had a suitcase of clothes and a portfolio. My writer had pretty much the same stuff. And then my sister was dating him, so she went, right? She had nothing. So they gave us a 12-foot budget truck to drive cross country from Detroit to San Diego. And I had to do it it was 3.5 days it took us.
Oh my God.
And it was a complete and utter nightmare. Everybody except for myself was ready to turn back and go home by Albuquerque.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That sounds terrifying.
When we stayed at a motel where I'm pretty sure there was a dead hooker under the bed we slept in.
Shush. There was not.
No, swear to God, I'm gonna tell you a story. So we pull up to the one place that we could afford, which was, I think it was like $30 a night, and middle of freaking nowhere, Albuquerque. And we back the truck up, and $30. Walk in there, all the mirrors are smashed. Glasses on the floor. There's blood all over the bathroom.
Why didn't you call the police?
Well, I looked at my sister and I go, somebody's dead in here. And I don't want to look under the bed. So we're dead tired. We've been driving from Detroit to Albuquerque, like switching off drivers, because we can't afford anything. I spent my last dollar on that budget truck. It was $1,200. I was working at a warehouse at the time in Detroit.
Amazing that you had that money saved at all, too.
I mean, yeah, it was nuts. So anyway, long story short, we're like, screw it, we're gonna stay here. So all three of us were sleeping like this on the bed. No covers, no nothing, because I was like, I don't know how much blood is anywhere in this place. So I think we slept maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, we're done, let's just go. It was like,
this was before cell phones, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we had no cell phones.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, in my mind, I'm like, what? I called 911 and I'm like, there probably wasn't a working phone.
No. So anyway, long story short, so we're leaving in the morning. We're all dead tired still. And my buddy Simon, the writer, he goes, I'm going to drive, the death metal kid. And I go, okay. He was so tired. He accidentally put the truck in reverse into the metal roof of the motel. And you hear this crunch. And I look out and the entire roof is bent under the budget truck. He goes, dude, what do I do? And I was like, put it in drive. We're getting the fuck out of here. There's a dead hooker back there, and they're going to think we.
You think there was. You cannot confirm it. You didn't confirm that there was. But
listen, there was enough blood in that bathroom for a murder.
Oh man, that
wasn't like a stub toe or a hangnail kind of blood. It was like I murdered a hooker blood in that motel room. And we took off, and I said, look, they're going to think we killed this chick. I swear to God, she's under the bed. And then we got stopped by Border Patrol, I think like 3 times on the way out there. And because they thought we were coyotes. Because we had nothing in the back of this 12-foot truck.
Giant thing. Oh,
so
man.
we finally get out to this house in this beautiful suburbs of San Diego. And it was supposed to be my buddy's aunt and uncle who lived out there. And on a whim, there's no cell phones. There's no social media. He was going off of what his mom told him before we left, that there was an aunt and uncle at this address. Dude, we got there at 2:00 in the morning, parked this budget truck on their beautiful front lawn. And we had to play the name game at 2:00 in the morning. Like, who are you? And they were like second, third removed cousins from this family. And they didn't trust us. I wouldn't either. I had a 2-foot mohawk put up with house paint at the time. And they're like, look, we got a shed out back in the orange grove. And you can stay there. So yeah, we ended up staying in this shed in an orange grove. I was drawing pages on top of this tractor that was in there, sitting on the chair and mounting up a piece of board on top of the steering wheel. And we begged, borrowed, and stole until we finally got an apartment. And that's when I found out that Craig was a heroin addict. And he totally forgot we were even coming out there.
No.
And, anything we tried to get published, Diamond Distributing was like, wow, this is horrible. we're not putting this trash out. You're killing Rosie O'Donnell on a game show, because we were huge Guar fans. So we thought it'd be okay to kill celebrities on a talk show comic book thing that we had. And for 6 months, nothing ever got published. We had to get day jobs. I was working at a place called the G Spot, flipping
burgers. A restaurant, obviously.
Yeah, and in Carlsbad. And then I found cocaine, and then all of a sudden everything went south. My Craig called me up one morning. This is when it all ended. He called me up one night about 4:00 in the morning. I was all tweaked out. And I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I just blew my foot off." And I said, "Well, how'd you do that?" He goes, "I was aiming for my head."
Holy shit.
So I'm sitting there tweaked out between alcohol and cocaine, trying to figure out the math between your head and your foot. I'm like, "Well, why are you calling me, dude? Call 911. So anyway, Craig was out of the picture. And I was like, "I'm done. This has been 10 years of hell." And I developed one hell of a cocaine habit. How I afforded that, an addict can always figure it out. I mean,
amazing, right?
We used to screw with hookers all the time, who were all tweaked out, and they used to give us, I say we, meaning like me and my little cocaine friends and crackhead friends. And I gave up drawing. I was done. I was like, this is it, 10 years. And this is where it ends up. And it got to the point, I was there for a year. I was only drawing for maybe 5-6 months of it. And lost everything again.
But you hadn't given up drawing, but you stopped applying, is what you're saying. But you still were drawing.
No, I gave up everything.
Okay.
I stopped drawing. I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna end up dead in the gutter. That was pretty much the only time I ever got arrested was in California. It was supposed to be an overnight stay in the drunk tank, and I was there for a few weeks at county.
Whoa.
And yeah, and that was that bad. So I had lost everything through the addiction. And the bar owner that I worked for at the G Spot finally one day took me aside, and he goes, "You got to go home." And dude gave me $50, which is what I had in my pocket when I got to California. He gave me a carton of cigarettes, got me drunk, and then bought me a Greyhound bus ticket from San Diego to Detroit. And then I ended up back in rehab.
So when did the light start to break in? When did it become? No, I'm serious. It's not. I mean, because it's like this is so much adversity, and it really truly is. Again, it speaks to.
Oh, it's bad. There's worse. I mean, we could do a whole like 4-hour podcast on.
I mean, no, if you want, I mean, look, I'm saying I'm not limiting the time. I was not prepared for the information, and I am very much experiencing this on a level that is, I'm like, oh, it's
it gets worse. It you learn a lot about yourself in rehab, and I've been there twice, and at a psychiatric hospital. I mean, I'm an addict. Through and through, I'm an addict.
It's totally understandable, given I mean, like, it's not like it doesn't make sense. It's there's certain things that the human brain and we only have so much coping mechanisms,
right. But at 47 years old, eventually you got to get this shit under control.
It's absolutely true. But
I'm sitting there just sipping on water.
Well, you know what though? But not everybody does, and I think not everybody has the ability to do it. And it's great to see that you are able to do that, because there are some people who just they can't get it together to do it. You know what I mean? And it's sad. It's not their fault.
Oh no, dude, I've been roommates with those people. Mm-hmm. Dude, my roommate at the psych ward. Holy cats. A book can be written on those weeks that I was at the psych ward with LG.
And so, like,
My roommate's name was LG in the psych ward.
LG, like the letters?
No, LG, like the pond scum, like LG.
Wow. Algae?
I don't think that was his real name though, but that's what he told me. And he used to hear Jesus on the radio, and so that was enlightening.
Was the radio on when he heard it?
Oh, we never had a radio.
Oh dear.
But it was cool to hear him preach, you know, from a 4-point restraint in the bed. I was in a 4-point restraint. He was in a 4-point restraint. And
what is it about people who are insane that they're really good at orators? They're just
he was a fantastic. He could have been, I don't know,
a preacher.
He could have been, yeah.
It's a thin line.
I'll never forget that guy. He was a wonderful inspiration in my life. Anyway, so I go to rehab, and I get out of rehab when I get back to Detroit. And my mom, God bless her, you know, my dad really didn't want anything to do with me because, you know, I was a screw up. You know, he's a cop still, and I'm an addict and a total screw up that I don't have 2 pennies to rub together. So my mom finds me this farmhouse that was next to her salon, and she knew the owner. And when I got out of rehab, I'm living in the attic of this farmhouse for $75 a month. That's utilities included. But the thing was, you couldn't stand up. If you stood all the way up, your forehead got scraped by the stucco.
I guess that would
I was like always hunched over. So my mom was like, look, you're not doing anything with your life. You failed for the last 10 years as an artist. Why don't you become a hairdresser? And I was like, I don't want to be. I grew up in a salon when I was little. I was, you know, my mom would bring me to the salon,
right?
You know, to fold towels and stuff when she didn't want to get a babysitter, or she'd bring me to the morgue when she was doing the dead people's hair.
Oh, and, Lord.
Oh, they were her. She always say they were her best clients. And so I had more cigarette smoke and formaldehyde in my lungs as a kid at 10 years old.
How many I mean, you'd think it seems like an early age to be around corpses. I feel that would be my thing.
I mean, it was just. I mean, I found my first dead guy when I was. God, what was I?
Your 21? First dead guy.
I found my first dead guy. That's a whole other story. Yeah, I found my first dead guy when I was 20. I had just gotten out of the psych ward.
Oh God, that's a great time for that to happen.
And I decided to go for a walk. My dad let me stay at the house. So I was in Romeo. And yeah, I took a walk, and I was going through the old high school parking lot, and yeah, I found a dude who blew his brains out in a pickup truck.
Oh my God!
So then the funny thing was I had to walk down to this is a very rural area.
Yeah.
And I was in heavy goth 90s makeup. I got chains coming out of my nose into my ears. My throat was pierced down to my abs. At the time. Yeah, it was all self-induced. So I had to go to the police station looking like that and report a suicide in a pickup truck at the high school. Man. And the cops were like, oh no, he did it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So anyway, so my mom wanted me to be a hairdresser. She took me to a hair show. And at a casino in northern Michigan, and she goes, I'm going to show you a company, and you're going to love them. And it was a company called Rusk, R-U-S-K. And I saw the owner and creator of Rusk up on stage with these giant monitors of anime cartoons behind him, and he's cutting this beautiful platinum mohawk, and it's super frippin' cool, and there's a huge audience. And this guy is like performing, and he's just, hair is going everywhere. And I told my mom, I said, look, if I'm going to be a hairdresser, I'm doing that. I don't want to be in a salon.
Yeah.
I want to be up there with that guy. And she goes, okay, well, you're going to need your license for at least 2 years to even try out for that. And it's a 2-year apprenticeship. I said, give me 6 months. So 6 months to 8 months in my apprenticeship, I found out there was tryouts for Rusk up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I went up there. And, you know, it's a 2-year apprenticeship. I'm only 8 months in. I don't know jack. But I can bullshit my way out of anything. If I knew how to get free cocaine, I can get this job.
Well, I mean, I would say this is even more difficult, but you know, I mean, it's a positive way of looking at it. I'm with it. I'm with you. I'll go with that.
So I walked out of there and I got the job.
And did you have to demonstrate like on an actual person, or?
No, it was all talking. And that's how I got away with it. Because when you're up on stage doing hair, you're just bullshitting. You're selling shampoo. And I understood that. I'm like, they're not doing just haircuts. The haircuts are free. What they're doing is they're selling shampoo for Conair.
Okay.
So you're a pitch man. So I was like, I'm going to play the pitch man. I was watching everybody else, and I made sure I was last in that interview because I was watching everybody else, and I was watching the body language of the person interviewing. And she looked like the hottest Joan Jett. So I sat there and I hit on her the whole time, and I bullshitted her, and I told her how great her eyes were, and oh my God, all this other kind of stuff. So anyway,
if she was like Joan Jett, she had good eyes. I mean, it's like Joan Jett has.
Oh, there, yes. I still talk to her today. So anyway, bullshit my way on there, and I got to make it to the tryouts where you actually had to physically like do a presentation. And I failed that miserably my first time. But I hit on that woman so bad. And she goes, look, you can sit in the hallway. My plane leaves at X amount of time. If I still have time, I'm going to give you one more shot to do a presentation to see if you get this job like full time. I said, okay. So I sat in that hallway for 3.5, 4 hours going over the material. I came back in there, did a presentation, knocked her socks off. She goes, you're hired. Within months after that, I still am not licensed at this point as a hairdresser. And within months, I became the youngest designer to turn full time with Conair. And there was only 5 full-time people.
And you became international. Like that's when you started becoming like you were doing the fashion weeks in New York and jet.
So I was a D-list celebrity hairdresser before there was celebrity hairdressers. And yeah, I did 4 years of New York Fashion Week. I launched Nikki Hilton's clothing line.
That's right. And Cell Dweller,
Cell Dweller, I did 15 years. I created his look when he moved here from New York. I still talk to him today. Yeah, Chris Angel Mind Freak.
That's crazy because I mean, like, let's say Chris Angel, if there he was, you remember the hair. I mean, it's for me, it's almost like he is the hair. It's not
the
like
reason I got that job was because Chris Angel and Clayton from Cell Dweller were best friends growing up. And I started doing Clayton's hair first. Oh. And Chris Angel was like, dude, who the fuck is your hairdresser?
It's a great business card.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I did season 2 of Chris Angel for the opening. Yeah, I did Fabio's hair. I did.
Is Fabio like? Is he?
Dude, the greatest guy ever. He was my favorite ever. Because his highlights were processing. He goes, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. We got 30 minutes. What do you want to do? He goes, I don't know. I go, you know, be really funny, Fabio. He goes, what? I go, you should call my mom.
Oh, nice.
He goes, why? I go, because you're fucking Fabio, dude.
Yeah, dude, because
So he called my mom off my phone, and my mom knows me as a prankster. So when Fabio called my mom hung up on him. So he hands the phone back and he goes, here. And I go, what? He goes, she hung up on me. I go, hold on. So I said, Mom, doing Fabio's hair. You got to talk to him. So I give him back the phone. All of a sudden, Fabio disappears behind a curtain for like a half hour.
what?
Comes back and gives me my phone back. I go, dude, am I calling you dad now? Like, what the hell? It was supposed to be a joke. You were back there for 30 minutes.
What was he doing? Was he?
They had the greatest conversation, my mom and
Oh,
Fabio.
he talked to. Okay, so he took the phone behind the curtain.
Yeah,
okay,
and he's like,
I thought that for a second. I thought that he just disappeared behind the curtain, and he's
no,
just.
he was like, so you heard about the pigeon?
Well, I remember I can't believe it's not butter spray.
Oh my god, no! The greatest. I launched Green Day's clothing line.
Really?
I launched. Oh my god, I can't even tell you. It was a whirlwind. Yeah, I ended up. Let's see. I got captured in Dubai.
Yeah. What the hell was that about?
That's another story.
Because I saw an interview with you where you were friendly with the hosts, and they played a game where they were like guessing.
Oh, that's my mentor, Dave Akins. Yeah.
Okay. So that was like I saw it and I was like, damn, like I don't want to do a rehash of everything they did, but there were some interesting things, and you were kidnapped in Dubai.
Yeah, for several hours I was held hostage inadvertently in Dubai.
Inadvertently?
During the Second Gulf War.
How do you inadvertently take hostage of someone?
So I was supposed to go to Dubai. They internationally, evidently, I was a hit with Rusk. I don't know why. I guess I had a good personality on stage. I like people. I just like to meet people.
Yeah, you're a performer.
In that industry are a ton of egos. I don't like egos. I want to meet you. I want to hang out with you. I want to have some fun. So they're like, hey, we're opening up the UAE market, United Arab Emirate market. And I said, okay. So I get a call from my boss. My boss was a pissed off Frenchman. His name was Yves Enrichon. So Enrichon. So anyway, he calls me up. He was like, hey, we're going to put you in Dubai. He goes, but I'm going to tell you right now, Philip, I wouldn't go. I was like, well, what? Because of the war? Because, why not? He goes, and they kept putting off my trip every time they would book it, because I was supposed to do this whole huge presentation thing for the Swedes and the Muslims, because Dubai is actually split between the Swedish and the Muslim community. So I had to do 2 weeks, 1 week with whatever. And so they kept canceling it because, they were beheading the nuns. They were beheading the construction workers and all that good stuff. And my boss kept going, Philip, don't just tell them no. Tell them you don't want to go. And I was like, no. I said, Eve, I have the most beautiful red and black mohawk. I said, if they cut my head off, do you know how glorious that's going to look on CNN?
Oh, yeah. Well, they might not be able to show that on CNN. There's a
back then the internet was glorious. You could get anything, so somebody would see it. So anyway, long story short, so finally the guy goes, like, all right, Phil, you're going. I was like, okay, cool, let's go. So I'm off to Dubai. And what a horrible plane trip. The Australian plane ride was better than going to Dubai. Anyway, I get there. I have a driver. I have a translator. I have 2 people from the distributorship. and then some other entourage. Now, before I went, I got an evac card. So if something went down, I could go to the U.S. Embassy and get a free helicopter ride the hell out of there. That's how much Conair Corporation, who owns Rusk, put up money for me just to go there for 2 weeks.
So you looked like a mark. You looked like somebody because you were.
Oh, absolutely. This is before all the celebrities were like, Dubai is so great. No. Dubai at the time was not that great.
And you were basically like, you're a person walking down a dark alley with a diamond necklace on.
Yes. So anyway, I had a driver every morning that would pick me up, and he had a little sign that said Phil Stone, and I knew the guy for the first 3-4 days. So I'm like, hey, how's it going? It was a beautiful car too. It was a Mercedes, and I drove to work, and I worked for 15 hours at the distributorship, and then it was a straight shot down the Burj back to the Radisson Hotel. And one morning, there was a new guy, and he had a crappy sign, and it was also a crappy car. It was like a Ford Fiesta or something like that. And I was like, man, I must have pissed somebody off yesterday. So this dude takes me to work. He doesn't speak a lick of English, and it was the same ride off to the distributorship. Swarovski Crystals was the neighbor of this distributorship. That's how ritzy this shit was.
That's well, Dubai, yeah,
yeah. So anyway, so this dude drops me off. I go to work, 15 hours. Now, when you're leaving at night, that desert gets real dark
and cold, right?
So the dude in the Ford Fiesta is there, and I was like, all right, whatever. So we start driving down the Burj from the docks, and all of a sudden he takes an exit, and I'm like, this isn't my exit. I've done this several times already. So I go, hey, where are we going? And I'm trying to be cool about it. Now I'm in a black suit, black shirt, black tie, mohawks up. I have boots that go up to my ankles or up to my knees with spikes and chains, because that's Phil Stone.
Yeah.
So he didn't say a word. So all of a sudden we start winding around through neighborhoods off the freeway. Now the neighborhoods have those little walls, around the houses, right?
Yeah.
And they'll have a little gate, and you go through there and whatever. So I start freaking out.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming at this guy. I'm like, where are we going, dude? Where the fuck? And then all of a sudden I'm swearing. I'm like, I don't know if he understands swear words, but there's swear words coming out. All of a sudden I'm sitting here contemplating myself. I could jump out of this car, but I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the Boy Scout in me is like, maybe I could find the freeway, but I probably won't make it. The way I look, I stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, we're gonna see where this takes us. Anyway, we pull into this walled area to this house. Then we pull into the garage. Now the garage has nothing in it. It's nothing but drywall walls. That's it. I'm screaming at this guy.
This is terrifying. Yeah.
Like in a death metal voice. I'm like, I'm just trying to project. I'm like, dude, we're in a Ford Fiesta. I'm screaming in your ear, and you are not responding. He gets out of the car, goes into the door that goes into the house, right? Shuts the lights off. I'm in complete darkness now in this garage, in this Ford Fiesta. And now I'm freaking out. And so I have a Rusk makes a lot of scissors that do different things. Mm-hmm. So I have a whole case of these things. So I pull out all my scissors and I put them in my hands like Wolverine. And I'm like, somebody's going to get cut. So I locked the front doors, which was dumb because I was like, dude's got a key. He'll be able to get in, but I bought myself some time. Also, I'm gonna stab somebody.
Or you could
Dude,
hear
I was in there for, huh?
You could hear him unlock too. That might,
Yeah. So I'm in that car for 5-6 hours, sweating like a stuck pig in this black suit, black shirt, black tie, scissors, like they're infused to my hands at this point.
Right.
Several hours later, door opens, and I was like, this is it. I'm gonna end up on CNN. Dude gets in the car, opens up the garage door. I'm screaming at him because I'm like, well, this is it. Now he's gonna drive me out, and they're gonna behead me out in the desert. They got whatever they wanted. And all of a sudden we're on the Burj again, and drops me off the Radisson.
What the fuck?
So I go running into the Radisson, and the first person I called was corporate. I'm like, hey, this is what the fuck happened. Told them the whole story. They're like, sit tight, lock the door, don't answer it for anybody. Okay, cool. Next person I call is my wife, my current wife right now. She's freaking out. I'm like, here's the deal. And I told her the whole story, and she's freaking out. I'm trying to stay cool. And I'm like, if these are my last words to you, then if they come busting this, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a war going on right now. So then I called my dad. My dad was like, yeah, I told you not to go. And so anyway,
really?
Corporate calls me back up. And they're like, look, here's the deal. Your old driver's coming back in the morning. Go with him. And the owners of the distributors want to have words with you. And I was like, you fucking think? The next morning, there's my old driver. There's the Mercedes. Hot damn, we're going to the distributorship. So we go to the distributorship. They rush me into the office. They didn't want me talking to anybody. And they thought the opening anecdote should be the Dubai newspaper that had me on the front page. Phil Stone from Con Air is in town for 2 weeks doing education for all the latest chemical services from Rust.
But so did they figure out what what was
the dude went to dinner and then decided to like fuck around with his kids.
Are you serious?
Yes. That's what they told me. I'm like,
holy shit.
for 6 hours? Dude, I'm like, dude, they left me in a garage. Yeah, he doesn't work for us anymore. I'm like, dude, you just showed me the front page of the Dubai Times or whatever it was that Phil Stone from Con Air, this is called money. And I'm locked in a garage for 6 hours. So anyway, that is the Dubai story.
Yeah, well, geez, and look, okay, so maybe I don't agree with your father's emotional tone, but I do think I agree with the fact. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have gone, but
right.
That is genuinely terrifying. That must have been like, I mean.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Like okay, so there's two different things. There's the things that happened, and then there's hindsight. And trying to find the balance between the two, because it was very scary. I'm going to tell you that right now. Was I shitting my pants? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Did I really think I was going to get beheaded? Absolutely. With everything and the climate that was going on at the time with the Second Gulf War, and the company I worked for that owned the company that I worked for, yeah, I thought I was going to die. In hindsight, that the roller coaster is done. I'm like, fuck Dubai. Anytime people bring up, oh, Dubai is so beautiful, fuck Dubai.
That's yeah, no, that would pretty much ruin any place like that kind of situation, because that is like you know like a hostile sort of.
Wait, guess where they took me the next day?
Wait, after the corp after that you went to the
They
main
thought they
building?
were gonna make this all up to me and give me a day off and a big day in Dubai, right? So they take me, my translator, my driver, the people from the distributorship, we're all gonna go to the Gold Bazaar, which is what Dubai's famous for. I have never seen haggling before.
Never seen haggling before? Wow, that's
No, like legit Arabic haggling.
it's hardcore.
Dude, I was scared out of my fucking mind. So all I wanted to buy was this necklace for my wife, and it was 400 dirhams, which was essentially like 75 bucks. And I was like, I'll take that. And my translator goes, no. He's not paying 400 dirhams. He's paying, no. Mr. Stone is not paying. And then they're like going back and forth. I'm like, dude, it's 75 bucks. It's fine.
Yeah. It's customary over there. It's like you absolutely you it would almost be considered abnormal to not fight over
I'm watching these two grown men fight over the it got down to like, I think it was like $35 I ended up paying for this necklace, right? And I was like, okay, cool. It's 35 bucks. So I give him the money. He goes, no. You don't give that money to that man. Mr. Stone needs a case for this and he's not paying for it. And I was like, oh, son of a bitch.
Oh man.
So I'm like, dude, I'll take the paper bag. It's fine.
Like, I don't want to be kidnapped again, please.
Oh, so yeah, that was my introduction to that.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, no offense to anybody from from Dubai, all that stuff, but that sounds terrifying. I don't like that would sully my travels for sure.
Bye bye.